Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this second day of Array Festival. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming back. What a week, what a start we've had so far. Yesterday, a day jam-packed with some really good conversations, some debate and some insight into the emerging cluster of Electech, and so many people joined us. Social media was absolutely on fire with conversations about Array, so pleased that so many jumped aboard and joined us. And for the rest of the week, we've got so much more to come as well. As we told you yesterday, we've got Digital Tech Day today, so we've got a number of conversations, discussions, a panel debates of all sorts this afternoon coming up. And tomorrow is a focus on low carbon innovation as well. And then on Thursday, it's a day full of talks and seminars designed to provide us with inspiration as we look forward and look forward to recovery. So, couple of things just to mention as well. ICS Accounting, the ICS Accounting team who are sponsoring, headline sponsors, are in the breakout rooms all week. So if anybody would like to go and speak about accountancy, payroll, super deductions, IR35, head into the rooms. They'll be on the right hand side. Click rooms, then head down into the room marked ICS Accounting, and a member of their team will be available for conversation of the week. And today we've got the team from SQ Digital, who are partner sponsors in the SQ room all day, providing all sorts of advice and support around anything digital marketing strategies, whether it's social media campaigns, website UX, SEO, paid. Go into their room, again, hit rooms, go to SQ Digital, and you'll find some of the team there available to advise and support. So today is all about digital and creative, and what a morning we've got, at least this first session we've got today. Really pleased to invite a panel to talk about the future of retail. Lancaster has got one of perhaps the best kept secret is we've got so many experts on e-commerce, digital retail, live retail, and it's a great opportunity to showcase some of that expertise today. So I'm really pleased to have with us on a panel discussion this morning, Melanie McKay, who is a former head of e-commerce for Lakeland Retail, and has successfully moved into her own independent retail with her own F&M wool shop, and still acting as an independent e-commerce consultant and digital marketing consultant. We've got Mark Hallam as well, who is one of Lancaster's best known digital entrepreneurs. Going back to the days of Business Serve, a lot of people will know Mark from Business Serve and IOMart, and then most recently now Group CEO of Cloud Commerce Group, who are doing some fantastic things around e-commerce and supporting so many e-commerce retailers. And finally, we've got as well, streamed in this morning, is Daniel Prince, Senior Lecturer in Security and Protection Science at Lancaster University. Daniel's also Associate Director and Business Partnerships Manager for Security Lancaster at Lancaster University too. So good morning to you all, and thanks for joining. Melanie, I'm going to come over to you first. It's been a very challenging 12 months for retailers. You've in perhaps a unique position that you've made this step from working in e-commerce to taking your own high street retail store and doing incredibly well. Tell us what's it been like on the high street for retailers at the moment, and what do you
mean? It's been a picnic. The last 12 months has been fine. No, it's been a nightmare. Obviously, we've gone from open to close to open to close. It's been incredibly challenging. I think retailers who were prepared to pivot and get into the online space have obviously fared a little bit better than retailers who just had a bricks and mortar existence. But in saying that, I think it's quite innovative how people have come to digital. So my neighboring shop, The Exchange, which is a dress agency in Lancaster, doesn't have an e-commerce website, but they do a lot of their trading through Facebook. And not through Facebook Shop, through actual just posting, we've got this in, do you want to come and buy it? We had an e-commerce website built, but not launched. So we sat there in April last year and took the decision, crikey, doors are shut, what are we going to do? We flipped it on. It's not fully functional. It's not what we want it to be. but we sort of saw that there was no other choice. If we didn't get into that, there would be a challenge. I think the other thing that traditional bricks and mortar retailers have turned to beyond social media is things like Zoom, showcasing on Zoom. So in the yarn industry, where I sit now, there's loads of virtual festivals and shows such as this, where people are showcasing their wares and engaging and talking with customers. There are workshops. There's so many ways of engaging and going towards experience, which as digital people, we probably have all been talking about experience for the last couple of years anyway, and how that's going to be the differentiator for shopping as the ground levels a bit on a digital playing field. So I think the pandemic in the last 12 months has kind of just put all of that on a little bit of a fast forward.
And that's really interesting, because when we kind of listen to what's going on in the world around us and people talking, particularly in the sort of press and what have you, you know, it's not always a bright picture that people are painting, but it sounds to me like actually it's probably a bit more positive than what people are saying. Do you think that for retail?
I do. I know a lot of other independent retailers, both locally and across the nation, from the various roles I've held in the past. And I have to say, for independent retailers on the high street, I think we're in the beginning of a renaissance. Obviously, we just saw Debenhams close its doors at the weekend, after almost 200 years of trading, and that is devastating, watching them go to Boohoo. We've seen Jaeger move to M&S, so we've seen this sort of this move from very traditional in-store experiential places into digital. And I think it will be interesting to see how that pans out longer term. But I think your high streets, because in some instances there's more government assistance, there's more of a willingness from local bids and councils to re-stimulate the high streets, that you are getting more small independents taking advantage of the opportunities. So from as far away as my friend Bill Inverts in Colchester, who's seeing sort of record figures in their shop, to some of my yarn colleagues over in Nottingham and literally just across the country, I think the smaller independent retailers are feeling pretty buoyant at the moment.
Brilliant, excellent. And Mark, the Cloud Commerce Group, you provide e-commerce solutions for a whole host of SME businesses. What sort of things are your customers saying? What sort of things are you finding people are saying about retail at the moment?
So at the moment, I mean, I think it's really, it's what happened, or what has happened over the last 12 months really, where obviously there's nobody expecting this. All of a sudden, wham, overnight, a lot of stores on the high street did close down. But I also think there's a lot of people that were sat at home, perhaps with a bit more time on their hands, perhaps thinking what we're going to do today. So a lot of people were surfing, they were looking, but the big thing was also buying. And we went from a situation where we've got just over 1,000 customers all trading, not just online actually, probably 100 of them are also on the high street or kind of high street and online. But we went from a situation where those 1,000 customers, the vast majority of them overnight doubled their business. And it was literally, one day it was like that, then the next day it went like that, and then that, and it just kept on going and going and going. And the strange thing is that it hasn't slowed down. Even now, I liken it to the kind of levels of trade that we're seeing going through our platforms at the moment. It's like a Black Friday level of trade every day. It just does not slow down at all. And what we're hearing from the retailers is that there's the odd one or two that perhaps even have got stock issues more than anything else, and that's kind of been a big problem for them. But yeah, it's been a really amazing time. But a difficult time as well, really difficult time.
And do you think that'll continue? Do you think this kind of people moving online, retailers going online, do you see that just continuing and continuing now?
I think it's, I mean, this has accelerated, hasn't it? Let's be honest. And I kind of agree with what you're saying, Melanie. I think the consumer themselves will dictate the choice, but I'm a strong believer that choice has got to be a mix of online and still have a high street representation. But I think that we've perhaps crossed over the hill overnight almost, where e-commerce has overtaken the high street. And I've been doing this for 22 years, and I've never seen this level of acceleration coming.
It's amazing, isn't it? For all these years, we've kind of been sat we've known about digital. We all know it's there. We knew it was kind of a tool to use, and it's taken this kind of 12 months to really, as you say, sort of taking it over the hill and become much more mainstream now. I'm going to now switch over to the Zoom, and we're really pleased that Dan's zooming with us today and chatting to us. So, Dan, good morning to you.
Morning, how you doing?
Oh, good, thank you. So, Dan, as we start to move forward now in a world of digitisation, security is going to be vital, I think, from what Melanie and Mark have just described. What sort of things are you advising perhaps those starting out in retail or those who are already in retail to think about? What are you telling them to think about from a cyber point of view?
Well, the first thing I try to get them to think about is the customers, right? That's what retail is all about. So if you were a customer of your service, your store, how would you want to be protected by that business? And then work back from there. So we've seen over the last year a massive increase in every type of digital fraud, from SMS messages coming through pretending to deliver parcels to credit card scams to more email scams, and the type of volume of kind of illicit messages coming through trying to trick people is massively increased. And we've seen lots of warnings about that on the news. And so that the whole process of us being online, moving online, that's not going to go away. And criminals are being very successful exploiting this new world. And so when you're thinking about retail, I think the first starting point is thinking about what's the types of protection you want to put in place for your consumers, right? And then working back from there, because really, if you can start to think about how you're delivering that kind of protection, it gives you a really good way of differentiating between some of your competitors. And that's not just about being online, but it's also thinking about being in store. I mean, a lot of stores, even independent retailers, small shops, are collecting, data around their clients to add value to them and be able to upsell and all these types of things. So thinking about how you're going to protect that information and protect your client to add and to create opportunity, I think is going to be really important. And for us at Lancaster, when we're working with businesses generally, we try to get them to think about security as an opportunity, not just a kind of a drag on the bottom line. It's not something you have to do to, protect your firewalls. It's not about the technology. It's about your customers. It's about the people that you work with. How do you protect them to the level that you want them to be protected, and then making sure that you're putting in the processes, the technology to deliver that protection. And then trying to work out how to use that as an opportunity. How do you build that into your business strategy from the start so that you can then recognize the value and then build on it? And that's certainly some of the things that we do within the Cyber Foundry projects that we run, working with the businesses to take them through a process to understand from start to kind of finish, how do you incorporate cybersecurity as a business opportunity, not just something that you're told you have to do or something you think you have to do.
That's a really interesting point, Dan, and I guess for a lot of retailers who are sort of starting out, it's perhaps not front and centre of the mind to consider cyber as the most important thing, but as you say, encouraging businesses to take up cybersecurity as a focal point of the business early on will prevent a lot of challenge and a lot of pain in the future. And I'm sure that's a big challenge for many. And as you say as well, I'm sure we can all identify with some of those kind of text message and email scams that we've all had over the last 12 months, and they seem to be proliferating much more. So really interesting. I'm sure we're going to come back and touch on a couple of those things in a few moments' time. But leading on from what you say there about customers, and perhaps, in fact, I'll move on to yourself. What do you think? Dan's spoken there about cyber as being something that start from the customer end and really understand what the customer thinks. But commercially, what do you think? How are customers changing and evolving, do you think, moving forward?
that to me?
Yeah, sorry, Melanie. Yeah, sorry.
You've got
Yeah.
two M names here. So.
Yeah, no, it's to Melanie. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's fine. So I think the thing with the customer first approach and the cyber security first approach are both things that, with my background, is how I've approached my business. It's not common, and I think also working with the demographic, so having a wool shop has really taught me to keep it simple, stupid. And funnily enough, we've done PSAs on some of the scams that we've seen with SMSs and emails to our audience. So it is definitely driving how we approach what we do, but I think it's not an innate way of thinking for people in business. And I think for me, it's almost what people like the cloud commerce guys are doing that drives it. Because when we go to someone, we go to a partner to say, we want to do this, we want to make a website, we want to do something. This is where we turn to people like Mark and his team for their expertise on this and guidance.
Yeah.
And do you think there's any other ways you're seeing customers changing? Mark?
Again, I think for us, most of our customers are retailers that are selling on multiple platforms, so Amazon, eBay, plus the website. I think that the consumer themselves are actually starting to trust these platforms. I think the size and scale of the likes of Amazon and eBay have given them trust, and that trust is now filtering down into through the websites as well. I think people are just more used to getting the credit card out. The more they're happy to do that. But equally, I know that there's some big changes going on at the moment on that side of it. Certainly, the banks and everybody else in terms of two-factor authorization and things like that are coming on that will again, perhaps people might look at that as a bit of an inconvenience, but again, it will probably just help those that are a little bit unsure to perhaps transition over as well.
The other thing I was going to say that I've noticed in the high street is the proliferation of use of contactless by older people. So
right.
The vast majority of my older customers would pay cash, or if they paid card, even if they had a chip, they would choose to insert their card. Since we've gone into the last 12 months or more now of craziness, watching people come back to the shop and the amount of older people who are willing to do the contactless, who don't take receipts now sometimes because they've got an online banking account, that's a real visible difference with the end consumer for me. Because there was a lot of, I don't trust it, if I can't see it going through, if I don't put it in, there was a real reticence to sort of engage that way. And nowadays, I've had one chargeback in the last 12 months, which was from an older person, and that was challenging because they'd actually bought the goods and still raised a chargeback, and I lost. But it's been really interesting to watch how older people are sort of coming online or phoning in and just doing this and trusting in an entity that's far away and unknown, and giving it a go.
I think we're really seeing these real big changes now, isn't it, in the way people are purchasing them, and the key word there being trust, and retailers are perhaps thinking about how you encourage consumers to trust you, and they do. Matt, you started talking there about some of these bigger retailers, Amazon, Shopify, and I know the platform that you guys have created interacts really well with some of these bigger online e-commerce platforms. How important are they going to be for retailers, do you think, moving forward?
For retailers and consumers, really. I mean,
Right.
the point is it's choice, isn't it? And I think that the likes, particularly Amazon and eBay, to start with, have actually probably driven this online boom in many ways. I can remember going back again 20 years ago. I had a company that we did e-commerce websites 20 years ago, but nobody really went and bought on them. And I think that the likes of Amazon have made it so easy by getting not just the trust that people have got of these platforms. Amazon in particular have got very much a consumer first focus. The retailers that we have that use Amazon, which are probably 80% of our retailers, I wouldn't say they're massive fans of them, because Amazon will side with the consumer come what may. Melanie mentioned their chargebacks. Well, you get a chargeback on Amazon, you're not seeing your money as a retailer, but they are, without doubt, leading consumers into online shopping. And they're also giving retailers an opportunity to actually, as a local retailer, reach not just a national audience, but an international audience as well. And that is so powerful. You go back 15 years ago, and if you just said to Melanie, you can put your wool in every single Debenhams in the UK, she'd have been, well, hey, we're rich, don't have wildest dreams. Well, that's what Amazon does, and more, because it's such a powerful brand. And yet retailers, local independent retailers, marketplace retailers make up over 50% of Amazon sales worldwide. So it's a massive opportunity.
And can I ask, and perhaps, Melanie, just an extension of that as well, this idea of kind of being able to go and use these online marketplaces to be able to open up markets, new markets, sell all over, but at the same time operate a local independent who has got maybe, kind of one-off products, bespoke. Are there any challenges there? Because if you see, if you've got this renaissance of the high street, especially for local independents, but also then at the same time managing these behemoth online platforms.
I think the thing with the platforms though is, so in the crafty space, you've got things more like Etsy, Craftsy, Folksy, lots of E's. But like, so we have an eBay shop. It's actually under a slightly different name and we use it for clearance. Which is another thing that's available to us that as a retailer we wouldn't have thought about historically, and now it's kind of going, okay, I don't want it to take up shop, because shop space is so much more valuable than virtual shop space.
Yeah.
So I think that it's you can still engage with the customer. These platforms, I find eBay for me is more of a personal touch than Amazon is. So the one thing that I think as local retailers that you're offering is that expertise. So if it's a hand-turned bowl from Hisham, you can tell them what wood it is and who the wood turner is. You can put it on a label, but you can also say, yes, it was ethically made by this guy, not his son, and whatever. But you don't have as much of an interaction. So I think that whilst these platforms are really good for breadth and for getting yourself out there, ultimately, for local retailers, I still think it's about that personal touch and that connection.
Sure. Mark, I know we've had this conversation, but about that kind of management of stock as well, and the logistical operation in the background, what are your thoughts?
Well, again, that's what we do.
Yeah.
And the reality is that is by far and away the most complex part of it, and it's complex for us as a software provider. We've got a lot of people working for us trying to keep this going, but from a retailer's perspective, I think they underestimate the sheer. It's really the amount of sales that they're going to generate. You can go online and go onto Amazon and eBay, and suddenly you're doing 200, 300, 400 orders a day. And to do that, you've got to have your stock control right, you've got to have your warehouse management service right, you've got to have the whole end-to-end process, customer services, communications with customers, returns. Every one of those things have got to be absolutely right, because essentially these guys are letting you on their platform. It's all about their reputation. If you do something that affects their reputation, you'll be off their platform. So it's very complicated, but it's definitely something that retailers have. It amazes me. I go and visit people all over the country, and their knowledge that they've picked up in a short space of time is, these are people that would have been on the high street, would have been on a market stall or whatever. Suddenly they're talking about returns volumes and all sorts of things. So yeah, it's tricky, but
you must have said something particularly important there, Mark, because I don't know if you noticed the light sprung on just as you said to that logistics as well. Absolutely, though, incredibly important points there. Dan, I'm going to come back on the Zoom as well now, and just want to pick back up with some things that you're identifying, Dan. You're really at Lancaster at the forefront of what's going on around cyber, but in general with digital, some of the work that's going on up there is really quite impressive. Dan, I just want to know really, from your point of view, what are you seeing around sort of future trends in digital out there? What sort of things do you think retailers should be keeping an eye on with the future of retail?
Yeah, so I think this whole pandemic situation has been really interesting to observe the use and uptake of technology from, just an example now of this blended delivery of a panel session. I'm coming in via a Zoom stream. Can you imagine trying to do this 6 months ago even, or a couple of years ago, to try and run an event like this with this technology? It wouldn't have been really possible, or be very complicated. And the sort of one of the key things I think that's happened, and one of the things that we look at quite a lot is the experience. And one of the things that we see is that often is technology getting in the way of the experience. And retail, by and large, is around that experience. And we've heard, concepts such as trust. I would also bring in their confidence, and building that loyalty with your customer base. Thinking about the experience not just online, but actually in the shop, and connecting that experience so that you've got like this continual engagement, so that you have a reason to come into the shop as well as to shop from home. So there's a continual kind of experiential development, and we do quite a lot of work in thinking about how individuals can engage with technology, but also other systems as well. And one of the things that I think future retailers in general need to start to think about is how can they start to develop that experience such that there is a reason to come into the shop, but also the shop can be invited into their home. So how can you start to use things like augmented reality, for example, as a great way to experience the products for people who can't get into the shop, but may want to at some point purchase one or two things at home, but then come in. And importantly, around the experience as well is this idea that you are, as retailers, being invited into somebody's home. So for online purchases, so for things like trust and confidence in your store, your service, those become really even more impactful and important when you're being invited into somebody's home. So how do you connect the experience of shopping online, shopping in store, being a shop in somebody's home, and how do you make sure that you protect all of that? It is going to be really important, because one of the things that we've seen is a breach in that security, a breach in that trust, and a breach in that confidence can have a significant undermining effect in the user experience, and then also impacting on brand loyalty as well. And so it's going to be really important, I think, to start to think about how not just thinking about online retail, but online retail in the home, and how you actually create that experience that moves away from and takes advantage of the new technologies we're seeing, that's just not just a web browser, but provides an extension of the store. And then that's all underpinned by protecting the customer, your client, your shopper, in a way that really improves and builds confidence, builds trust, and builds that brand loyalty.
That's really interesting, and I really like this idea of being invited into the home, actually, the retailers in the home. Really interesting principle there. And I kind of go back really to something that you were talking around earlier, Melanie, about experience and the importance of all this. And I kind of wanted to just maybe thinking about what Dan just said there around inviting people to the home, fusing future technologies around AR, and I'm sure some really interesting stuff that's probably taking place up at university right now, Lancaster University. What would you be advising someone who's looking to kind of start a retail business now? What sort of things would you be saying to them?
Funnily enough, I'm starting another retail business in about a month. So
here's your moment.
No, funnily, just listening to Dan just then was spot on. Like that is it. It is about that, bringing them into your home as well as theirs. I mean, we do Zooms every week where a bunch of people come to my house, I go to theirs, and we chat wool. The next venture is a pen shop, is stationery. And for me, I think if you're going to go into high street retail in particular, I think you need to think about what your product is. Is there a real need? Is it something where physical engagement and passion, I think, are involved? Yeah. I think the idea of I'm going to go online and sell widgets is kind of over. I think that moment has passed. So for anyone who's looking to do this retail thing at the moment, be it bricks and mortar, online, or a hybrid, I think the important thing is that they believe in the product. there is a passion point around the product or service, because that's how you build your community. We've not really spoken about social, but social is another big part of that. The amount of Facebook Messenger shopping sessions I did, WhatsApp shopping sessions I did in the first lockdown in particular, was just vast. It was really bizarre. I've got people's numbers in my phone. Again, when we're talking about that security thing, we're sharing personal data that we would never have shared with a customer before. So it is really weird, but you kind of have to be willing to do that if you want to be a retailer in 2021. It's not just about opening the shop, buggering off home, end of. It's about investing yourself, your time, and yourself really quite fully into it, because it's not just a 9 to 5. I mean, I'm messaging my customers sometimes at 11 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning. So it is something that you need a little bit of heart for. I think it's.
Mark, any thoughts on that?
I kind of echo what you're saying about product, Melanie. I think it's absolutely key. That's the one thing that we've seen over the last several years, where the retailers that are really successful are those people that are really selling a product that they've thought about sourcing. It's not just trying to sell everything. You don't want to be a market stall, essentially. You've got to look at that product, buy deep into it, try and find a product that's got a good margin. And then mainly, if you're particularly thinking about this online, if you're going online, don't just think you can throw up a website and sit back and the money will come rolling in, because you're going to have to work at it. It's about having good product photography. It's about having great content and description on that product. It's about putting it into as many places as the consumers themselves are looking. So, you should have a strategy where you are taking advantage of some of the platforms like Amazon, eBay, Etsy, but also where you're looking at your own website, you're looking at your own social media, you're looking at driving that product through social media, and really trying to engage with the right kind of customer that isn't just going to be going out there. They're not looking in one place for it, they're looking everywhere.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, guys. I think we're coming towards the end of the session now, so I'm going to ask everybody, starting with Dan in the studio. I'm going to ask Dan first and foremost to just give us maybe a sort of summary, 30-second summary thoughts of the discussion and what you think about the future of retail, Dan.
So for me, I think it's just building on what Mark was saying around this idea of community. One of the great things that the internet does is allow us to reach out to a broader set of individuals to build a community around a product, and just thinking about how you do that and provide the trust and confidence within that community that it is a place that people want to engage around the product and the capability that you're trying to sell.
Brilliant, thanks, Dan. Mark?
Again, it's carrying on what I've just said, really. You've got to get your product right. You've got to think about how you are going to use that product, sell across as many platforms as you can, and also make sure that you've got your technologies to back that up. I would say this, but it is critical that you understand your stock control and how you're going to dispatch this product and how you're going to engage with those customers to make sure that they're getting the experience that they get on the high street, where they can just walk in and talk to somebody and return things, etc., etc. So it's critical that you're thinking about everything when you're trading online.
Great, thanks. And Melanie?
Customer. I think it's the future of retail is still the customer. It always has been the customer. It will be the customer. What do they want? What do they need? How can you make it available to them easily, accessibly, regardless of your platform? And again, we didn't touch on accessibility particularly, but that's another really big thing to remember, because a lot of people who are online, up until very recently, a lot of your customers weren't online. So it's just that whole trajectory of customer to the end game that we have to concentrate on. And I do think, like I said at the beginning, that independents are in a prime position to really start regaining some ground both on the high street and online. Yes, we'll see.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, thank you all. I think we've really summarised incredibly well there what the future of retail looks like. And I think the pleasing thing for me is that Lancaster is a place where we've got wonderful independent retailers. We've got the people with the skills and knowledge of e-commerce to support businesses. and we've got the educators, we've got the academics who really understand at a deep level what the future of industry is looking like. So what better time to be in this industry, to be in business and to be starting to grow, and certainly what better place where you've got everything around you in this city region that you would need. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Daniel Prince for joining us, to Melanie McKay, to Mark Hallam. I hope you've all enjoyed this session. Stick around the rest of the day. We've got so much more. The SQ Digital team are bringing not one but two fantastic education sessions, so plenty to learn from the experts in digital marketing. We've also got an interactive session with Lancashire Forum and Innovate, the footwear apparel brand, later on this afternoon. Mike Gibson, as many of you will know, is leading a session on how to build an incredible SaaS business. And then at the end of the day, we have a one-to-one entrepreneur story interview with James Walkerdine of Relative Insights. So final reminder, please go to the breakout rooms, plenty of chat from the ICS accounting team, the SU team. Thanks to the panel, and we'll see you again later on today. Thank you.